Well, class, we welcome you to the Reed and Christine Halliday Executive Lecture Series. We're grateful for the Halliday support of this program. We have someone, I won't point her out, but someone from BYU graduate who's sitting here, and she's never had a chair this comfortable at all of her studies at Brigham Young University. So you're sitting in the Vallejo Auditorium with a very comfortable seat and generous donors who have made this building and this lecture series and this auditorium possible for us. We thank you for it. Yeah, go ahead and switch them out. Let me introduce you quickly to Brandon. First of all, he's from Eugene, Oregon. If you've read my LinkedIn page, you know I have an interest in Eugene, Oregon. My wife and I lived there for a few years. He and his wife, Lindsay, live in Alpine and have 4 children. Only one favorite child. You can tell us which one that is at some point. He's an entrepreneur, co-founded 3 companies, Recall, Solutions, Weave, and most recently, Previ. Please join me in welcoming Brandon Rodman to the stage.
Hi, everybody. You guys can hear me? We good? Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry that I am the one you guys are stuck listening to today. Not really, but nobody's going to laugh? There we go. Man. Now you guys know I'm not funny. So, all right. I'm just going to talk about my journey and some things that you guys might be able to take from my journey. So I had a really hard time trying to figure out, what do I come in and tell students? What do I come in and what kind of advice do I bring to you? Because advice is this nuanced thing. So really, I would like to kick this off. I want to give you a disclaimer that when you get advice, you need to take it with a grain of salt. That includes anything that I tell you. Now, as a student, you've got your whole life ahead of you. You think you're going to go do big, great things. I hope everybody does. But along that journey, you're going to look to other people who have been successful. And you're going to feel an inclination to do what they did or to do what they recommend you do because they're successful. They have a lot of money. They have prestige. They have all these things that I think everybody wants to get to. But I can tell you from my experience, and you can talk to anybody else that has built a company that has been successful, there are points in time that if you took advice from someone who is very well-intentioned, somebody who you respect, but if you did what they told you to do, things would not have worked out how they worked out in a positive way. For example, I'm on to my 3rd company now that I've started. My 2nd company went public. If I took the advice of someone who I respect dearly, I would have shut that company down in the early days. I would have returned money, investment money, to the investors. So, very well-intentioned advice might have been right in many scenarios, but this was nuanced. And so when you get advice from people like me, from Tom, from anybody, you have to realize that that advice is nuanced. That advice may have worked for that individual under those specific circumstances at that exact moment in time with those exact people. And so now it doesn't mean you can't learn from that advice, from other people's experiences, but you have to make the decision yourself. And there are times where you're going to decide and make a decision contrary to what everyone is telling you. And that's okay. That's what leaders do. So, all right. So that's my disclaimer. Everything that I say, take it with a grain of salt. And you have to make those decisions yourself. Okay. So these are the things that, as I kind of share my journey, I'm going to go through with you guys. There's 5 things here. So 1, your journey is unique. Your journey will not be like anybody else's. It will be unique. Number 2, stay in the game long enough and you might get lucky. Number 3, dare to be different. Number 4, things aren't going to go as planned. You're going to get punched in the gut. Things are going to get hard at times. You're going to have good times. You're going to have bad times. And number 5, your best work is ahead. So, number 1, your journey is unique. So, oftentimes we think, well, if we do what that person did, we're going to get the same results. Sometimes that can be true. Oftentimes it's not, because just like advice that people can give you of what you should do in certain circumstances, those might only work because of the nuances, because of what existed for that other person at that moment in time. So, journey being unique, this was something that as I was thinking about my unique journey, I graduated from Brigham Young University. I got a major in marketing and advertising. Well, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm kind of using that stuff, but I'm not a marketer. I'm not in that field. I work with people that do marketing. I hire people that do marketing. But so as I was thinking about my journey, it made me wonder, well, how many other college graduates end up working in their field? I've hired hundreds of people in my different companies, and what I'm interested in is their experiences. Now, if they have a degree, that's awesome. I'm curious what that degree was, but I want to know the experiences. What have they experienced and how have they learned? So, your journey, some of you are going to work in the field of your major. Some of you will. And some of you have this clear line of sight of exactly what you want to do. But most of you aren't going to. You're going to see an opportunity somewhere. Maybe your background is in finance, but you see an HR position in a company that's amazing and you know the head of finance and he can get you in. Maybe that's your journey. Now all of a sudden you're an HR leader, but that's not what you graduated with. So most of your journey in the future is not going to be specifically in the field of your major. So Steve Jobs, early on in my journey as an entrepreneur, I took a lot of just cues from all that he had done. And the reason is because obviously he started Apple, but then he was booted from his own company. He went off and started Next. He then bought Pixar and invested in that super early, and then ended up back at Apple. And we think of Steve Jobs as like one of the most famous entrepreneurs, the best CEO ever, but he didn't start that way. And one of my favorite quotes from him, let's go back. There we go. Okay, so you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. So you guys right now, college students, you don't know what's ahead of you. So you've got to trust in something, but you got to make decisions. You got to move forward. But at some point, you're going to be able to look back and see how all of these dots connect. So as an example, this is what my journey has looked like. And so I played baseball growing up. That was something I was known for. I wasn't good enough to play in college, but I thought I was. I didn't end up playing in college, obviously, because I wasn't good enough. So I played baseball growing up. I served an LDS mission. I worked in a shoe store after my mission before going back to school. Then while going to school, I got into door-to-door sales. After door-to-door sales, I started my first company, Recall Solutions. And then after that, I started my second company, a company called Weave. So we can look at what these things are, these points in time on a journey, and you guys can even look at your journey to date and be able to plot the what. But the what isn't the critical thing. It's what did you learn? What did that experience prepare you for? that is going to prepare you for something in the future. So let's flip this a little bit. So what I learned playing baseball is I can play through failure. Baseball is a game of failure. The best players historically fail more often than they succeed. So I can play through failure. That's what I learned. The second thing, I served a mission. Well, I can handle rejection. That's what I learned. Third thing, I sold shoes in a store in a mall in Eugene, Oregon. And, well, what did I learn there? I learned I can sell. Then I did door-to-door sales. What did I learn there? I can recruit people and I can lead people. So the next thing, Recall Solutions, my first company. What did I learn? Oh, I can start a company. That's pretty cool. So then I start another company, and what do I learn there? I can do all that is needed to build and grow a big company. So if you look at these points in time, there are learnings from those. Your journey is going to be unique. It's not going to follow this. So, but embrace the uniqueness. Okay, next. Sometimes you just gotta persist. You gotta stay in the game long enough. And if you can stay in the game long enough, you just might get lucky. And most people that have been successful, they will credit luck. And sometimes this is just a fortuitous moment in time, something happens. Sometimes it's you're in the right place at the right time. So my story with the beginning days of Weave. So I started my first company in 2008, which was Recall Solutions. I started my second company, the first time I started my second company was in 2010. We had to restart that company in 2011 because things weren't going well. And from 2011 to 2014, it was painful. So we couldn't raise any funding initially. No venture capitalist would talk with us. Angel investors weren't interested. So I was personally funding the company. We ended up selling our vehicles. We were upside down in our house. We had $50,000 in savings. That was down to zero in our bank account. We emptied our small retirement account, our IRA. We were $20,000 in debt on a credit card because we were paying employees personally. We were all in. I got a part-time job to help just pay some of the bills. And fortunately, one little stroke of luck, I have some family members who have been successful in life. And they thought what we were building was pretty cool. So they were the only angel investors I could get to give us some funding. Well, that funding ran out, and we couldn't get any venture capitalists to invest. We couldn't get any angel investors to invest. And so we were on the brink of shutting down Weave in the end of 2013. We believed in it. We wanted this company to be successful. We thought it could be huge, but no one else viewed it that way. As a last-ditch effort in the end of 2013, I applied to Y Combinator. Anybody familiar with Y Combinator? So it's a startup accelerator. They have funded companies like Airbnb, Stripe. It is the New York Yankees of the startup world. So no Utah company had ever been accepted into Y Combinator. We had just been turned down by another accelerator, which wasn't as prestigious as Y Combinator, but we got an interview and we got accepted. So we were literally on the brink of shutting down. We received, I think it was $100,000 in funding from them. That kept the lights on for the company. Within a month of being accepted in Y Combinator, we had raised $1 million in funding. Now, not much in a company can change between December of 2013 and January of 2014. The only thing that changed, we got lucky. Y Combinator thought, Weave can be a big company. But because Y Combinator thought that, we got funding and we had to tell people that we don't need any more money, guys. Like, we're good. We have too much money now. And so that stroke of luck was what we needed. We had investors like Sam Altman, one of the founders of OpenAI. We had the Gmail creator as an investor. Like, just crazy things. The guy that runs Y Combinator now personally invested. So we got this stroke of luck because we stayed in the game long enough. Now, 2014, fast forward to 2021, that company was public. So again, sometimes you just gotta grind. You gotta persevere. You gotta figure out a way to stay alive. When we think of cockroaches, we don't think of like positive things. But if you can become a cockroach in your profession, when you have a dream, you just might be able to make it happen. Okay. Number 3, dare to be different. Okay. Leaders are different by definition. If you do the same thing that everyone else is doing, you're not a leader. If you do the same thing everybody else is doing, you're going to get the same results that everybody else gets. Now, it doesn't mean go out and try to be different in everything you do in life. That's just obnoxious. But try to be different. Be authentic to who you are. If you want outsized returns, you've got to do things a little bit differently. So for me, as part of my journey, in a little bit of a story about Weave. We raised funding in 2014. We were growing really fast. We raised another round of funding in 2015. Growth continued to accelerate. We went out to try to raise some more funding in 2016, and no one wanted to fund us. At that time, we also started having problems with our technology. We had outages. Customers were complaining. Customers were canceling. And so the growth rate of our company went from 130% year over year in 2016 down to 55% in 2017. Now, there's kind of one rule in business: growth rates don't accelerate. That's almost a truism. But we wanted to buck that trend. We thought we could. And so what we ended up doing is we grew 100% in 2018. We fixed everything, we got customers bought in, and we were growing fast. And we were hiring a lot. We raised another round of funding in 2017 and then 2018. So things turned around. So what I wanted to do is, the team had done so well, all the employees, we had about 300 employees at the time. Companies don't double like that, especially at the size we were at. So I wanted to reward them. But it wasn't just to reward them. We needed to grow from 300 employees to 500 employees in the next year if we wanted to maintain that growth rate. And so at the end of the year, we threw an awesome party. And we had a big budget for all of our employees because we had overperformed. We grew that much. And so for that party, it was about $3,000 per employee. And what you guys are gonna find in the market when you go work for a company, if you're an early employee or you haven't been with the company for very long, or you're not like the top employee, your thank you at the end of a year, your thank you gift is probably gonna be like a t-shirt, might be a gift card. It's probably gonna be around $100, maybe $200, somewhere in that. And that's nice that a company does that, but that's not what we were gonna do here. We had $3,000 per employee, and we weren't gonna go to just the best employees and say, you're amazing, we're gonna give you a huge bonus, and then to all the other employees and say, thanks, here's your gift card. So what we did is we created a marketing event because we needed to hire a lot of people, and we needed to tell all these people, these 300 employees, thank you. You killed it. Now I need you to go back to work tomorrow and do even more than you just did. So what we did with that $3,000 is we actually gave out 14 gifts to all of our employees. But this was like an Oprah moment for me. You guys might not. Do you guys know who Oprah is? Gosh. All right. So this was like an Oprah moment for me. I love talking about this because I still get the warm fuzzies. So none of our employees knew what was happening. I stood up and I had one of these gifts on a slide. And so started out like, you guys have been awesome. We killed it this year. Really want to say thank you. We've got some fun things for you. And first thing, you get a Cafe Rio gift card. And there was about 600 people out there because everybody brought a +1. And everybody's like, yay, okay, like cool. Hopefully that's not it because I worked really hard. Well, then we gave a t-shirt. And again, like not very loud. We gave another t-shirt. And each of these are on a different slide. And so we get to like the Apple AirPods and people are like, what's going on? Like each thing's a little bit bigger. Now we just got AirPods? And so then I'm like, do you guys think there's any more? Like, should I press the button on the clicker? And they're like, yeah. And like, still not like super into it. And then it's a Patagonia jacket and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, should I do it again? And they're like, yeah. And so then it's an Oculus Go, a VR headset. And people are like, oh my gosh. Then we got to Sonos speakers. And that's when it got really fun. We finished with everybody gets a Traeger grill. And people kind of lost their mind thinking that was it. And I'm like, no, that's not it. Everybody also gets $2,000 in cash. Prorated for as long as they had been there for that year. So with $3,000, we were able to get all of that stuff. I'm going to come back to this in a minute because this is some of the inspiration behind my new company. So dare to be different. This is not how companies operate. And every single company heard about what we did. Hiring was extremely easy for us in 2019 because people want to work for a company that respects them, that genuinely says thank you. And we treated all the employees the same. So dare to be different. That's how you'll stand out. Okay, next, we're going to bring things down just a little bit. That was, one of the highlights of my career. But things are not going to go as planned. You're going to have difficult times. So in 2019, we had just raised our Series D round of funding. We had raised $70 million. We were valued at $970 million, almost $1 billion. Well, just 3 months after this announcement, I announced to the company that I was stepping down as CEO. Everybody was confused. And about a year after that, I announced I was going to step off the board. And then a couple months after that, the company went public. I'm outside. I wasn't inside for the company going public. I didn't get to ring the bell. Employees were in there. The new CEO, everybody else. That hurt. Now, things can get hard. It's how do you respond to things that happen? That's the only thing you can control. So things are not going to go as planned for you. You're going to get punched in the gut. There's going to be things that hit your ego. You're going to think, I should have gotten that job. That investor didn't believe in me. Whatever is going to happen, you're going to have things in your personal life. Choose how you respond because none of that stuff can keep you down unless you allow it to keep you down. So, next, your best work is ahead. For all of you in this room, that is true. Unless you have decided it is not ahead for me. That's the only time your best work is not going to be ahead of you, is if you have made the decision that that's the best thing I'll ever do. So my last company goes public. What do I do? Well, I was listening to a podcast, and turns out my situation is not unique. There's a lot of other CEOs of high-growing, successful companies that didn't get to go all the way. And I mean, Steve Jobs, one of them right there. So was his best work done when he left Apple in 1985? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, look at what he did. So what was I going to do? I was listening to a podcast, and there was a CEO who had been CEO of a company here in Utah, and the company was performing horribly, and they let him go as a CEO. And on that podcast, I heard him say, the best work of my life was not going to be in my 30s. I was 39 when I heard that. And I was like, dang freaking right. That motivated me. The best work of my career is not going to be this company, Weave. I'm too young. I'm experienced. So the best work of my career is ahead of me. And so that brings me to Previ, my third company. So I was thinking, what am I going to start? And this is in the summer of 2021, and inflation was going nuts. You guys are going to experience this. The cost of living is difficult, and wages are not keeping up with the increase in the cost of living. Housing prices, mortgages, gas, eggs, like all of these things just keep getting more and more expensive. And so I was looking at this problem in 2021, determined I'm going to build another company, and it's going to be much bigger, much more impactful than Weave was. What am I going to build? Well, I got to solve a massive problem. I need to try to help all these employees that helped build Weave from zero to IPO. How do I help them? I owe everything to them. Well, a lot of them, even if we're paying them good wages, they're not saving as much because everything else is getting expensive. Well, it turns out that's not a problem only for those 500 Weave employees at that time. It's a problem for employees everywhere. And so I saw this problem, and then, oh boy, we'll go back. And then I was thinking about this phrase that we used at Weave. We had a billboard up for a little while, said people, not employees. We really wanted to treat people like they're human beings. They're not a number on a spreadsheet. So I'm thinking through what's the inspiration for my next company. And people, not employees, kept coming up. Then I told you guys about this experience, okay? $3,000, we got all of that. If you do the math, you cannot get all that for $3,000. So we reached out to each one of those companies that we bought stuff from and asked, if we buy 300 of these, what kind of a discount will you give us? And everybody gave us 40 and 50% off. So turns out the Costco model, if you buy in bulk, you get better pricing. And so inflation, cost of living, people, not employees, how do I help these people in their real personal lives? Then one of the highlights of my career comes to mind. So what we're building at Previ is kind of Costco 2.0. I love Costco, I think it's great, but I think there's an opportunity to work directly with employers. The companies you're gonna work for in the future, I hope you hear about Previ from them. And so today, we have cell phone service. We have a partnership with T-Mobile, we have a partnership with AT&T, and when people do their cell phone service through Previ, working directly with us, they save on average $1,251 a year. Now, if we go back to that graph on the cost of living, that helps people materially to save that much. Usually, when you get better pricing, you get a crappier product. Not with Previ. So it's unlimited everything, unlimited data. It is the best possible plan you can get. But because you're coming through Previ, we have negotiated on behalf of anybody that becomes a member of Previ this premium pricing. But you can only have access through your employer. So we don't want to do that just for cell phone service. We want to do that for everything. We want to create an amazing buying experience. And if we are successful and can save people money, help them keep more of their hard-earned paycheck, Previ will be a massive company. And so your best work is not behind you unless you have accepted that. Look forward in optimism to what's coming. And I hope that never changes with me. So, as a recap, your journey is unique. Stay in the game long enough, and you just might get lucky. Dare to be different, lead, try new things. Things aren't always going to go as planned. The only thing you can do is decide how you respond to that adversity, and then your best work is always ahead of you. So, that is it for me. Questions? Oh, right there.
How do you know when to take advice and when it isn't for you?
Okay, so the question is, how do you know when to take advice and when not to? So, I don't have an answer. And the reason why is sometimes people are trying to minimize risk rather than maximize opportunity. When there's opportunity, there's risk. When there's opportunity, there is a chance of failure. So one of the things that I think can help you think through good advice versus bad advice is this kind of framework of regret minimization. So, would you regret doing X? Or would you regret not doing X? So, for example, when the advice was given to me, like, hey, this company's not gonna work out, like you should close it down in a good way. You have a little bit of cash left, do the right thing, return some of that cash to the investors. You'll maintain a good relationship with them. They'll have a ton of respect for you. All I could think is like, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to regret not trying to give every single ounce to this company. And it worked out. But there are countless stories of people who should have given up, should have stopped. And so that's what's hard. That's why you have to listen. You have to make the decision. You're going to get it wrong sometimes. And you're going to say, crap, I should have listened. But when you do get it right, just make sure it's really right. So.
We have a question here with a mic.
Okay.
We don't know what we don't know. So what questions should we be asking leaders so that we can learn those things and fill in the gaps?
All right, what questions should you ask leaders? I guess it depends on what kind of a leader. I think, again, this whole regret minimization thing comes to mind. If you look at a leader, let's say you're in your early 20s, and you're talking to someone who's been successful, and they're in their 50s or 60s or 70s or whatever. Ask them, what do they regret? What did they get wrong? What do they wish they would have done or wish they wouldn't have done? Where did things go wrong for them that if they could, they would go back and change it? Because there are things that you go through that are hard in the moment, but they're what define you. They're what makes you. And then there's things that are hard, that are self-inflicted. Clayton Christensen's book, How Will You Measure Your Life, comes to mind, where he would go, I think he graduated from Harvard, they would have reunions every year. And every year they would see all their friends, all their former classmates, and then progressively over the years, somebody wouldn't be there for the reunion, and they'd say, hey, where's that person? And occasionally it would be like, oh, that person's in jail. Or where's so-and-so's spouse? Oh, they got a divorce. And these little things would happen over time that even those people in the moment didn't realize. And so there's things that when you look back on a career that you can see, again, how all the dots connected. And so maybe ask leaders, like, you know, what do you regret? What do you wish you would have done differently? Just to try to get a view of the land moving forward for you. Go here and then up here, right here.
I just wanted to ask about, obviously you had a different experience with Y Combinator. Did you feel like your approach was different when you went to them, or were they just a different ear that listened to your project?
Y Combinator takes a different approach, like to startup accelerators back then and investors. So the approach we took with Y Combinator is, and just for everybody else, you apply to Y Combinator, you fill out an application. You have to submit it by a deadline, and they do this twice a year. And they only accept less than like 3% of the companies that apply. And today they give you $500,000 in funding. So it's a great way to start your company if you would need some funding. So, but you fill out this application, then you wait to see if they'll bring you in for an in-person interview. And they take like 10% of the applications and have them fly to Mountain View, California, and go meet with them for an interview. And it's a 10-minute interview. That's it. And for us, that application and that 10 minutes was the company, Weave stays alive or Weave dies. So when we got the notification that we were invited for an interview, we did everything we could. We took it as a life or death situation for the company. And so we did all the research we could. Turns out people have posted their experience in their 10-minute interview over and over on the internet, like verbatim. And people had posted, these are the questions that they ask. Even YC themselves have posted, these are the questions we ask during the interviews. And so me and my two co-founders, we just spent hours and hours putting those questions down, answering them, quizzing each other, because Y Combinator also tries to like throw you off. There's 5 partners in the interview, and they'll ask one of the co-founders a question, somebody else will ask a different co-founder a question, and they're trying to understand the dynamics. Do the co-founders get along, or do they talk over each other, or do they not respect each other? And so we prepped like crazy. We called other Y Combinator companies to ask for their advice. How do we get through? So we approached it like it was do or die. I think that was the difference. But Y Combinator is also, today they're making bets on hundreds of companies twice a year. Back then it was like 50 companies twice a year. So they just thought, this company has a chance. We were also further along than a lot of other companies that they normally see. So, but we're only, I think, one of like less than 15 companies that have gone public for Y Combinator. So, I don't know if that helps.
With Previ, it sounds like your biggest competitors would be credit card companies and people who are trying to save money by stacking up credit card points to, save money that way. How do you guys win that demographic of people who are obsessed with credit card points?
I don't care. So the thing is, the market's so big that we're trying to define a market differently. People are going to buy with their credit card. We're actually going to require people pay from a bank account. The reason why paying from a bank account, we can give the lowest price. We don't have a 3% credit card fees that we have to pay. When people pay from a bank account, they default at a much lower rate than with credit cards. We don't have to worry about credit cards expiring and how do we charge a card. So It's really about the mission of our company, and that's what's driving it. I fundamentally believe that employees work hard for their paycheck. And so what I want to do is help them keep more of their paycheck. That means they're gonna have to work with us a little bit differently than they might elsewhere. Like, sure, it's nice to use a credit card, but with Previ, you can't. Like, do you wanna do it or not? It's up to you. Do you wanna save money or not? It's up to you. So, do you want an extra $1,251 in your bank account at the end of the year? It's up to you. So.
Hello. Are there any books that you've read throughout your career that have either impacted you a whole lot, or either one that you're reading currently or have read recently that you would recommend?
So the one I'm listening to right now, I'm actually re-listening to it. It's a book called Play Bigger, that's about category kings. And a category king is a company that ends up demanding or taking up like 75% of the market share in that individual category. So Airbnb is a category king. It's even a verb. Google has been a category king. Like, they just dominate. And so I'm reading a book about that. Kind of, we're early stages with Previ, and I'm trying to get inspiration again of like, if we're gonna really make a huge impact on employees' financial lives, we need to dominate the market. We need to get out there and have everybody on Previ. And so I'm trying to get that inspiration there. So Play Bigger is a fun one. I love Simon Sinek's books. Anybody familiar with Simon Sinek? So Leaders Eat Last is a great book by him. Start With Why is a great book by him. I like Ben Horowitz's books. He's a venture capitalist. The Hard Things Are the Hard Things. I'm drawing a blank on the name of that book. It's basically for CEOs. Like, the decisions you're gonna make, they're all hard, even if it looks like one's easy, because if you make that decision, you're gonna alienate all these other people in the company. And then he has another book about company culture that I really like. So, but like, all I ever listen to is business stuff. Anybody else? We got one right here.
That's one why I'm bringing it to her. Market cap of Weave is not where you would have liked to see. What's its future? Any guess?
I don't even care. No, I say that a little facetiously. Like I love Weave, awesome company, great part of my life. But I don't own any stock in the company anymore. Like, I don't have any interaction with the company. I know maybe 10% of the employees that are still there. And so, you know, I hope they do well. I know a lot of people that still have stock in the company. So for that reason, I hope they do well. For the state of Utah, I hope they do well. But, you know, for me personally, like, I tend to be someone who focuses on the future almost at the expense of the past, which can be dangerous at times, and it's a superpower at other times. So.
It seems like things were going pretty well at Weave when you stepped down. So what led you to make that decision?
That is a great question. Well, let's just put it this way. It was not my choice. So my choice was to do it gracefully or to fight it and have it be very ungraceful. So the company was doing great, but you guys are gonna find this in your careers. You're gonna be the first at something, and there's always gonna be people that are more experienced. The bigger the company gets, the bigger your role inside the company gets. You're playing in the big leagues. Like, decisions get made that you may disagree with, but all they want to do is grow the company. So we'd raised a lot of funding. Our board was full of venture capitalists. We had a company worth $1 billion. And every single day at Weave I was learning something for the first time. So I had never taken a company public. I had never ran a company with that many employees. I'd never seen that much money in my life, meaning how much revenue we were doing. And there were other CEOs that had. And our investors, they wanted to get a big outcome. They wanted to take the company public. I wanted a big outcome. I wanted to take the company public. The difference was I thought I could do it. I've never done it. And they're like, well, let's bring in somebody who's done it and make it happen. So it wasn't my choice. One of those things really painful at the time, huge ego blow. But in hindsight, the right thing. For my personal life, I get to do Previ now, and I hope that's the work of my life. So,
Was it a curse of being 30-something, you think, instead of 50-something?
yeah, exactly.
So I don't know if you went into this at the beginning because I came in a couple minutes late, but I was wondering who your biggest mentors were and how you went about making those connections and what you kind of learned from them, your biggest takeaways.
Yeah. So, truth be told, I've never really had a mentor. And it's not that I haven't asked people for advice. It's like I listen to podcasts like crazy. I read a ton. I try to pay attention to what's happening. But it kind of goes back to that advice. A mentor can support you. They can give you advice. I was getting advice from everywhere. So there was not any like one or two specific individuals that I would go to. A lot of people are super busy too. So they want to give you a little bit of time, but you start asking too many questions, want to hang out with them too much. They're like, I've got stuff going on. So for me, it really wasn't a major thing. Now, it's not that I'm not grateful for all the people that would give me time, anything like that, but they're, when I hear people say, these are my two top mentors, it's hard for me because I'm like, I don't have that. It's almost like I feel like maybe I didn't try to cultivate it. But, some of you guys are going to know people and they're going to resonate with you for whatever reason. I've always kind of been maybe an outlier. I'm very bullheaded as well. When I have a vision, I'm going to make it happen despite what everybody else tells me. And for some reason, I have a knack for being able to make it work most of the time, not all the time. And so I think sometimes that rubs people the wrong way because a mentor wants to give you advice, and guess what? They don't like it when you don't listen to them. So, and I'm not very good at listening to people. That's what an entrepreneur does. So anyway.
A question then. Go ahead and just shout it out so you don't wait for the mic.
So back when you were going all in, you were farthest, you were in a ton of debt, your first time going all in on the company. How did that affect your family life and your relationships at home?
Yeah, so the question is, when we went all in, sold our cars, emptied out our savings account, retirement account, that kind of stuff, how did that affect our family? It was really hard. So I owe everything to a supportive spouse that believed in me despite the way everything looked like it was going. My advice to people is not to do what I did because it had to work. Now, there's also power in, burning your boats, making it happen, being all in, but it can be really scary. So my advice is not to do it. But I also told you got to make your own decision. But yeah, I owe it to a spouse that believed that it was going to eventually work out. But it was hard. Scared her a lot because she was she's always been a stay-at-home mom. But she was saving money. She would clean her grandparents' house every Friday, and her grandparents would give her like $50 or whatever just to be nice. And she would stash that cash away at Like she actually hid it from me because she thought I was going to pay an employee with it. And when I saw it one time in the closet, I pulled it out and it was in like a Ziploc bag. And I was like, what's this? Like not like challenging, not upset, not frustrated, just like, oh, there's like a huge stack of cash. What is this? And she started crying. And, you know, that's when I really saw the toll that it was taking on her, because she was thinking, if I need to, I can go buy food for the kids with this, because she was all in. So
If she'll still hire out for $50, I'll fire our housekeeper and use your wife, okay?
Exactly.
Hey, let's thank him for coming. And we have 3 or 4 seats left, so see Madison if you're interested. If you're joining us for lunch, come down. And thank you for being here. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.